channel. I haven't done a sit down video in a little while, but I really wanted to do this one because it's quite an important week for us in our little family. It's actually Autism Awareness Week from the 1st to the 7th of April. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to sit down and talk to you guys about our autism journey, on how our journey is going. Because for those of you who don't know, my name's Rachel and my little boy William got diagnosed autistic nearly a year ago now, and so I thought it would be good to sit down and talk to you guys about our journey. Basically, I've divided it into headings, and I do have a notebook here because I just didn't want to forget anything or just ramble and make this video a bit pointless. So I'll start. So I'll start with, how did we find out? So for anyone who doesn't know, our family, I just briefly mentioned, is, so it's me, Rachel, and my husband Pete, and our little boy William, who's now 3 but at the time was 2.5. We found out from William's 2-year check. So he wasn't actually, so his 2-year check came a little bit after he was actually 2, and which is done with a health visitor. So what did the health visitor pick up on? He used to lie on the floor and flap a lot. I'd get almost like he's like really overexcited, and he'd bash his knees into the floor, and it didn't seem to affect him, even though I think for anybody else it would have really hurt. He used to very much be in his own little world, and it was quite difficult to kind of break him out of it. He'd go like, William, William, William. And it's not that he didn't understand his name. He totally knows what his name is. But he was always just in his own little world. And if you tried to interrupt his little world, he would get quite irritated. Sorry, makeup all over. Anyway, he didn't have great speech. He knew some words and he knew nursery rhymes. So he could sing all his favourite nursery rhymes, but he didn't really talk proper sentences or anything like that. And he also used to toe walk, which is a big one, where they walk around on their toes more than they walk flat-footed. So she told us her suspicions, said don't freak out, but this is what I think is going on with William. There's lots of help that you can get, and I'm going to help set that up for you if you're willing, and we'll go from there. And so we kind of looked at each other and went, okay, let's see, like, okay, like, we've got to do what's best for William. We were kind of not shocked, because my dad works at an autistic school. We've got lots of teachers in our family, and they have sort of mentioned things over the time. My mum had mentioned quite a lot of things, so it wasn't like it was a massive shock. It was just a bit of a, okay, this is happening, okay, type thing. So what happened next was that one of the local people to help here is a group called Portage. They are really, really, really super lovely, and I can't exactly remember which way it all went, because it felt like it happened very quickly, but could possibly have been that the health visitor got in contact with them and then they got in contact with us, something like that. And basically they're just like a support group for kids with special needs, and they came out to our house to talk to us, give us some, like, not advice, but basically just talk to us, and if we had any questions they would try their best to answer. And then they would also come out, so that was the initial sort of one, and then we were given like an actual worker, like a key worker, who would come out every couple of weeks and just work with William for an hour on things that he needed help with. So one of the things massively that he's needed help with, and we've now broken through that, which is brilliant, is he only wanted to touch plain food. So basically he would eat toast and bread and chicken nuggets and chips. And he would actually eat anything on a spoon, which is good because lots of kids don't necessarily eat, but he'd eat anything on a spoon, but he wouldn't touch the spoon, so you had to feed it to him. And he would not touch himself. If you put him like carrot sticks or whatever, he wouldn't touch it because they were too cold. Like fruit and veg has like a texture that he just did not like. So yeah, that was something that we really needed to work with. The other thing that happened was through all this, we got in contact with a speech and language therapist who has been absolutely freaking brilliant. Like, William's speech is just come on leaps and bounds. I think it's been a real sort of conglomerate of help that's made William come along so far, but she was the driving force with the speech and language and giving us all techniques on what to do. And she was one of the first sort of experts that he saw, and she was just lovely, and he just responded so well. And yeah, so amazing. And then occupational therapy, which was a bit more scary. He hasn't had as much occupational therapy as he has speech and language. He didn't massively love going to the occupational therapist, I'll be honest, because he doesn't particularly like using his gross motor skills, or at least he didn't at the time. But again, that's something we've worked with, so I'll talk about that later. And then he also, and this is the big one, had to go see a pediatrician because the pediatrician will give the official diagnosis. So for the majority of this time while we're going through all this, it's suspected autism and sensory issues is basically what we've been told, until the pediatrician would basically diagnose him. So that diagnosis came something like 3 days or something before we flew out to Florida for our honeymoon. So we got the official diagnosis. It was like in that week between the wedding and flying out to Florida. That, I have to say, was the first time William ever realized he was being assessed. All the other things, he was mostly, he didn't love the occupational therapy, like I said, but he didn't realize he was being assessed, but he did realize he was being assessed with the pediatrician. And so normally he just goes, because normally what they do is with like portage or speech and language or whatever, is they just have a whole bunch of things set up, or they set things up with him and he just plays and then learns through that play. Where this was, okay, sit down at this desk, William, we're going to look at this, this, this and this. So he wasn't massively loving that, bless him, but we got a diagnosis quite quickly. Like, we just got after one appointment. We were told it could take several appointments to get a diagnosis, but we were in there, I think it was about an hour, and she said, yes, he is autistic. She said he's on, if anybody knows about autism, they sort of talk about it being like a spectrum, and every kid who's diagnosed is sort of somewhere on the spectrum. I think they say most people are actually somewhere on the spectrum. He is on the higher end of the spectrum for things like he's very, very good at like numbers and alphabet, and he's already starting to read and things like that. So she said he's up there, and the way she described it is he's the type of one, or like the type of kid who will get very obsessed with one type of thing. And I mean, we've seen at the moment it's cars and anything that goes, and she's like, he's the type of kid that would be the type that would look down a microscope and obsessively look down that microscope and make, like, you know, great discoveries that other people wouldn't have the patience to make. But at the same time, you've still got to like remind them, hey, don't forget to pay your bills, you know, don't forget to pay your rent, things like that. So that's basically, she said, that's the type of thing we're looking at. It may not be that, he may, you know, be a train spotter or, you know, anything. We have no idea what his future actually holds, but she said that's basically the kind of where she would put him on the spectrum. So yeah, so that's what we've been working with. Now, so I just want to talk a little bit about personally how all this felt. So personally, I felt, because we've got so many people in the family who are teachers, I've studied teaching as well, and I feel like I should have had a better awareness of this. I think I got quite mad at myself. I felt like I should have known better, because it felt like I wasn't parenting him properly for his needs. So I got quite like upset and distressed about that, because I just felt like I had to relearn how to parent him, and I kind of was just a bit mad at myself. So I went to the library and basically found every book I possibly could on autism and also on kids with sensory issues, just to try and learn as much as I could so that I could help try and parent him better. And one of the things that I definitely felt guilty from was, up until that time, when William would have a meltdown, my initial response was always, oh, William, get a grip, because he would have a meltdown about something that I just couldn't understand. Like, it just felt so minor, and I was just like, what is going on? Like, why are you being so dramatic? So I felt incredibly bad that I'd been sort of going to him, get a grip, William. So that is something that, once I discovered what was going on, that has been dropped from language with William, unless I know for certain he is being dramatic. Because that's the thing, you've also got to separate what is sensory, what is autistic, what is the fact that he was being a 2-year-old. So but yeah, that's something that has been changed. And so once I got some research, I just felt a little bit better armed to be able to work out how to parent him. But I did feel quite lost for, I don't know, probably like a good 3 or 4 months, until I got better research, and until we started seeing Portage and the speech language therapist, and they started giving us skills, basically. The reaction from friends and family is always quite a big one. So we had basically a bit of a mixed bag. Some family members were like, yeah, I saw that coming. Others of them are like, are you sure it's this? Are you sure he's not just being a 2-year-old? Which is completely understandable as well, because like I said, you've got to try and separate all these things out. I mean, 2-year-olds have meltdowns all the time, so you're trying to separate it out. So yeah, but basically the main conclusion from everything was that everybody, all friends and family, just want to do what's best for William. So we all basically had to learn a little bit, had to change some things, and everyone's basically got behind it, because we all just want what's best for him, which is good. The next thing we needed to do was put him into nursery. So something we wanted to do, because we wanted him to be able to mix with other children. So when we first found the nursery, we had no idea. This was before he'd gone for his 2-year check. Once all this started happening, we did inform the nursery and basically say, look, this is where we are. He had already started nursery before he got the official diagnosis, but his nursery has been incredibly good. The SEN teacher, the SEN, which is like special education or needs teacher, is his actual classroom teacher, and she has been so incredibly supportive and so helpful. And we were just so lucky. We struck absolute gold there. Like, that was brilliant. So that was really good. And then we got the official diagnosis, and basically she has helped work with what comes from the pediatrician and what comes from the occupational therapist. Everything gets sent to us and sent to them, and then they basically make like their lesson plans for William off what these professionals have said. So that's been really, really good. So progress. This is always like quite a good one. A good thing to talk about. So as you can probably tell, and I've said before, he has come on absolute leaps and bounds. If you had seen him a year ago, it's not that he wasn't a lovely little boy, because he's always been a lovely little boy. He's always been smiley. He's just the sweetest little thing, but he was so quiet and so in his own little world. And if you tried to take him out of that world, he just did not respond well. He also didn't say things like mummy and daddy. He sort of treated, he only ever went to me, Pete, Pete's mum and Pete's sister, but used us almost like interchangeably. Like he didn't realize we were his parents and that was grandma and auntie. He just kind of interacted all the same, but then he wouldn't go to anybody else outside of us four, which you can imagine is actually quite tiring. And he, like my family, because he didn't see them very often, he wouldn't really go to them. He didn't really know them. He knew one of my sisters a little bit better, but that was basically, he didn't really interact with them. He interacted with my niece and nephew though, because they're kids, a few years older than him, but it's like kids know. I don't know how they know, but they know. They would get down on his level, and maybe because he was so much younger than them, they didn't have any expectations of what they expected him to be able to do or something, but it meant that he would play with them and they would play with him, and they would just pushing cars backwards and forwards. But it made him really happy, and that was sort of the best interaction. Oh, and also with the little boy next door, again, he didn't have any particular expectations on William. So I think that has made us sort of, when I realized that, it's made me sort of realize that the best way to handle is to not go in. You know, you get all these like mum forums and updates, and it's like, well, your kid is, you know, however many months now, and they should be able to do this, this and this, and it's like you're checking off a checklist. I think I found it much easier once I just sort of didn't have those expectations, because then he didn't feel like he was being judged, or I didn't feel like I was judging him or whatever, but it meant that we could just play. So that was really good. And he now, obviously you would have heard him if you've seen any of my other videos. If you haven't, check them out. He says mummy and daddy. He's started saying the name, like he says names of his grandparents. He responds now if he knows that I'm on the phone talking to my mum. He'll come up and say, hi grandma. We've broken through that wall. That little William world that he was in has been broken through, which is amazing, because now he just wants to interact with us, and he wants to spend time with us, and he wants to spend time with his cousins. He's actually playing, like really playing with his cousins and friends at nursery. He makes up little games. He's got the most amazing imagination, which is just, it's so good. This doesn't mean by any means that he's like cured of autism, because that is not a thing. But what it does mean is that he's just come along a lots of leaps and bounds, but he's still autistic, and he's still leaps and bounds within his abilities. So he communicates so much better now, but one of the things that he does communicate is learnt phrases. He'll say, sort of things that he's either learnt from nursery rhymes or TV. So he doesn't just have a conversation like this, like just sitting here having a conversation, even saying that sentence he would never say. But if you say to him, I don't know, William, are you hungry? He'll say, he might say, yes, mummy, or he might say, good job, mummy. And that means, yes, I'm hungry. And then I'll say, okay, I'll show him like a banana or some What's-Its and say, which one would you like to have? And he'll push away the one he doesn't want, and he'll grab the one that he does want and say, again, like, good job, or excellent, mummy. Something like that. I mean, there's like a learnt phrase that he can sort of pull out of his brain to use in that situation. And one of the things I've noticed recently with him is that he he knows now that people talk in sentences. He doesn't quite know how to put them together when it's not a learnt phrase or learnt sentence. So when he plays and he's playing his little games with his card, some of it he'll go like, oh no, there's a crash, and you can hear all of that bit really well. But then he'll reach a point where he'll go, and that's he knows they're supposed to be having a sentence, he just doesn't quite know how to say the sentence. Or sometimes he'll come up to me and he'll go, mummy, and I'll be like, okay, and I don't know what he's trying to say, but it's like he's trying to have a conversation. He just doesn't know how to get those words into a sentence. But now that he knows that that's a thing, and he knows that he should be able to make up his own sentences, I think that's what this is. He's realizing this. That should hopefully be the next step, which would be really good. If he can make up his own sentences, that would be good. But yeah, he has absolutely just come on so much. Like, I can't even explain it. Every week it's something new and something different, so it's absolutely brilliant. Another quick brief thing that I just want to talk about was labels. So obviously you get your kid diagnosed autistic and then they've got that label, as people say. And I've talked to a lot of people, obviously, since William's diagnosis and even before then. And lots of them have said, oh, I think my kid has traits, or I've seen online as well, they'll say, oh, I think my kid has traits, but I don't want them to be labelled. And that is absolutely fine. I understand that, like, I completely understand where they're coming from. For us though, having that label has actually been a real blessing, because it's meant that he has gotten all the help he needs. It's literally like, as soon as, from even that first initial health visitor visit, as soon as she sort of said, I think this is what is going on, all of a sudden it was just like all these people sort of converged around us and were there to help. And they're like, oh, I can help, I can help, I can help. And it was just amazing, because we didn't know where to even start. And I have seen, as I've just said, I've seen how it's helped him. So I think back in the day, I know like labels were not treated well. Like, people were like, oh, I don't want to be labeled. But I think for William and for us, this label has actually been a blessing, because it's meant that he's been able to get all the help that he needs, and me and Pete have also been able to get all the help that we need in being able to support him. So yeah, I think it's just a really good thing. I just want to see what I wrote on the last page. So yeah, so yeah, so this is basically our journey. I've talked about a lot of good things. There are obviously hard times as well. It's very up and down. William has severe issues with sleep, which, if you've seen in my weekly vlogs, I talk about quite a bit. He does have meltdowns, and when he has those meltdowns, you don't know how long they're going to last. They're super intense. And they could last 30 seconds, they could last half an hour, you have no idea. And the adrenaline really pumps. But every day we're learning different things to help him through those. We never really know what's gonna set them off. But we try our best, basically. So it is very up and down. Making plans can often be difficult, because we just don't know what he's gonna be like when he wakes up in the morning, basically. And yeah, it's also something to bear in mind, which we have learnt, is even before we got his diagnosis, or even before it was even talked about, we had basically built our lives around his needs. Even just the small bit that we knew, and then a lot since. So it is something to bear in mind if you're planning to go on holiday, or staying at a friend's house or family's house or something, is you don't even realize until you're out of your comfort zone how much you have built your entire life around it. And that's fine, it's a good thing to do, because that's what keeps you sane, but it's just something to bear in mind. But yeah, so we're just at the very beginning of our journey, and I'm excited. I'm so excited to see what he's like every day. He's such a little sweetheart. The other day when I took him to Chessington, I took him for the first time on my own, terrified. I had no idea what was going to happen. Because he's, like I say, he's such a good little boy, but then if he has a meltdown, you have no idea how long it's going to last. So I had packed and overpacked every possibility. When I say terrified, not terrified of him, just, you know, I'm a planner, and I'm just like, oh no, what if I don't have the right thing? What if I don't have the thing to help him? What if I don't know what to do? It was absolutely fine, and he was so sweet. He was so brilliant, and he sat on the train because he loves trains and kept saying to me, so happy, so happy. And I think that's just brilliant. That's one of the things we've learned is some kids on the spectrum have it quite hard to feel emotions. William's almost got the opposite, where he overfeels every emotion, but it's a good thing. And so yeah, we're all just learning new stuff every day, and yeah, we're just incredibly proud of him. He's come so far, and he's just such a brilliant little boy, and yeah, we're just very proud. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps some people out there if you're wondering sort of what autism is, or what the process is. Maybe if you think that if your child is autistic, I just want to reassure you and let you know it's not scary. It's not this sort of big, daunting, terrifying thing, although it can feel like it at the time. And yeah, I hope this helps. And yeah, if you like this video, please like and comment, or down below, or tweet me. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye!